Seen me in assembly. Well, normally schools bring me in to assembly if they have something special that they want to do. It's kind of like special occasions. And I was performing at quite a lot of schools for a special occasion that we had back in December, just before we broke up for the holidays. Does anybody know what that special occasion was? What special thing were people celebrating right at the very end of December? Yes?
Christmas.
Christmas, absolutely right. Sit with the confidence of a perfect answer. Well done. It was Christmas. So I told a lot of Christmas stories. Right now, at this particular time of year, I don't tell quite so many Christmas stories, but we are, bless you, we are coming up to a time of year, another very special time of year, when I am asked a lot to tell some special stories. And this is a time of year in February where you might see your teacher especially, getting lots of cards on her desk and lots of flowers and lots of chocolates. Does anybody know what this time of year is called? Special event we might be on about. Yes, over there. Valentine's Day, absolutely. Is that what you were going to say? Fantastic. You'd have been right as well then. Yes, it's Valentine's Day. And some people ask me to tell some Valentine's Day stories, which is a big problem, because I don't know any. Well, I know one, but it's not really a Valentine's Day story. Well, it is. Well, okay, let me explain. It's a story from China. But China celebrates their Valentine's Day in September. That's right. They have their Valentine's Day around about your birthday. Yeah, they don't have it in February like we do over here. And the reason they have their Valentine's Day in September is because that's the time of year, if you're in China, you can see a special star appear in the sky. It's a star that they call the Bridge. You don't see it for most of the rest of the year, but every September you will see that star appear. And the reason they think that star appears is because a long, 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 time ago, up in heaven, the Queen of Heaven had a house with her daughters, and her daughters all had different jobs to do. There was a daughter who had the job of keeping the house clean, there was a daughter who had the job of cooking, and there was a daughter who had the job of weaving together their clothes and their quilts and their blankets and their cushions. Her name was Zinu. Yeah, I know, they give them pretty strange names up in heaven. So Zinu's job was to take fabric and weave it together like this. Can you all do that as if you're weaving some fabric? Yeah. And every single morning, the Queen of Heaven would come to Zinu and say, "Weave, Zinu, weave the clothes of heaven." So you can maybe say that as well now you've heard it. Let's give it a try. Ready? Weave, Zinu, weave the clothes of heaven. See, I knew you'd be able to do that. And so every single day, that's what Zinu would do. She would weave the clothes of heaven. And Zinu thought that her job left her really bored. Bored, bored, bored. Bored, 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 bored. Bored, 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 bored. Bored, 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 She had been doing this every single day for years, hundreds of years, because of course in heaven your life lasts for longer. Every single day she'd been weaving. Can you imagine doing the same thing day after day? It would be horrible, wouldn't it? So even though her mother would come to her at the start of every day and say those words, "Weave, Zinu, weave the clothes of heaven," just like that lady over there was doing, a little voice inside Zinu's mind started saying, "Leave, Zinu, leave the chores of heaven." I'm sure you can do that as well, can't you? Go, "Leave, Zinu, leave the chores of heaven." And at the start of this story, as soon as her mother had left her, Zinu went over to the window, opened it up, and jumped out into space. She jumped through space and headed towards a planet. One of the planets, which was actually their favourite one in heaven. Their favourite planet in heaven was a planet that, what's its name? Sorry, what did you say? Absolutely right. How did you know that? It was Earth. She dove down towards Earth and she landed in the country of China. Now she happened to land in a field that was owned by a farmer called Nulang. And Nulang was busy tending to his cows when he looked over and saw in the middle of his field there had appeared a really pretty girl. And his cow said, "Moo." Well, Nulang did what a lot of men would do, having seen a pretty girl suddenly appear in the middle of their field. Nulang went over and asked her what she was doing in the middle of his field. And Zinu didn't really want to tell him that she'd just flown all the way down from heaven because she thought that might scare him a little bit. So she just said that she was a traveller who was passing through China and she got a little bit lost on her way to see the sights. Well, Nulang decided he was going to help this pretty young lady, help her to see some of the sights of China. He took her to see things like the Great Wall of China. He took her to see Tiananmen Square. And while they were in these places, they started going to little cafes and having cups of tea together, because they drink tea a lot in China. And they started going to see shadow puppet shows together. And the more time they spent together, it was bound to happen. Eventually, they fell in a cowpat. And of course, after they fell in a cowpat, they got pretty filthy. So Nulang had to invite Zinu back to his house so that she could have a shower and get nice and clean. And after Zinu had finished her shower, she came downstairs and found that Nulang had set out a table with candles and a really lovely meal. And when she sat down and they had that meal, Nulang asked her to be his wife. And that's kind of what the cows were doing outside. But do you know what? Zinu, she really, really liked Nulang, so she said yes. And very soon they were married. And word spread throughout the land that Nulang had managed to marry this most beautiful of women. It spread all the way across China. It spread all the way across the world. It spread all the way up into space, where it reached the ears of the Queen of Heaven, who had been wondering where her daughter had got to. And now that she found out at last what had happened to her daughter, she was furious, and she went straight down to Earth. She grabbed hold of Zinu by her hair and dragged her all the way up, out of Earth and back into heaven, where she threw her back into her weaving room and locked up the window, so there was no chance of her ever escaping again. But that's not all. You see, the Queen of Heaven wanted to make sure that Nulang would not be able to follow his wife. So she carved a big line in space. She carved out a river in space. That's how it goes through that one. And let's see, if I can have you three sort of sitting in a line here, could you maybe sit behind her? If you sit in front of her, that's it, if you sit in the middle there. So if you sit there, that's it, and you're behind, that's it. And if you can come forward, if you sit behind him and you sit behind her, there we go. So if you sit behind him and you sit behind her, that's it. If you sit there, if you can come forward, Anna, if you come forward, Anna, and I didn't get your name, did I? If you can sit behind Anna, there we go. If you'd like to sit next to Shakir here, and if you, Shakaya, sorry, and Jed, if you sit there, and if you would like to come forward and sit behind Jed, there we go. If that's it, that's perfect. If you come forward there, if you sit there, if you sit behind this young man here, come sit here. There we go. And if you could come and sit behind him, so if you come forward a bit. Do we have anyone who's not sitting in one of these lovely lines? You seem to have come forward a little bit, so I'll tell you what, if... would you mind moving over a little bit so that you're behind this chap? If you could come over and sit behind this chap, there we go, I think that's more or less right. Oh, actually, if you come forward and sit behind her, then you can come forward and sit behind her. There we are, fantastic. So, we now have line-ish, line. Okay, that's good. But we're now going to carve out a river in the middle of you. So, staying in your line, we're going to imagine that the river has been carved there. So, you're going to need to move over that way a little bit. You're going to need to move over that way a little bit. You're going to need to move over that way a little bit. But not you. That's right, you're going to need to move over that way a little bit. You're going to need to move over that. You're going to need to move over that way a little bit. So we now have this line down the middle here. There we are. Fantastic. Now, I don't know if you have ever seen a river in space, but they look a little bit like a rainbow. A rainbow of just one colour. And this particular river was the colour purple. You can still see it actually today if you look up on some really, really clear nights. That purple rainbow is called the Milky Way. That is what the Queen of Heaven had just carved out in space, and it meant that no one from Earth could now easily go up through space and cross that river and get to their palace, the Palace of Heaven, where Zinu was once again stuck in her room, having to do that weaving day in, day out. Well, Nulang really was desperate to see his wife, and he wanted to petition the Queen of Heaven to get her to let him go up and see his wife. He needed to get lots of people to help him to do this, but the more people he asked, the more people turned him down. So let me see, I am going to say that this line here, I would like you to be the other farmers who Nulang went to ask, because those were his friends, they were the first people he thought to ask. So when he asked them for help, the farmers said, "Ooh." Can you three say that? Can you say, "Ooh"? Lovely. So then he went to see the beekeepers, and the beekeepers had lots of pollen up their nose, which is why they kept sneezing all the time. And he went to see those beekeepers, and he asked them for help, and they said, "Mm." Can you three say that? So you and you, can you say, "Mm." Lovely. And you, Anna, as well, you can say that with them. So, first of all, we're going to ask the farmers, and they're going to say, then we're going to ask the beekeepers, and they're going to say, is it all together, beekeepers? Very good. And then he's going to go to the fishermen, so that will just be you two now, I think. He's going to go to the fishermen because he thought, well, they know how to steer a boat. They should be able to go right across that Milky Way River, no problem at all. But the farmers, they said, no. Can you guys say that? Say, no. Ready, go. Lovely. And now Nulang went to see, well, having spoken to all of his friends in the town, he decided he was going to go and see the emperor and his family. So you guys on the end here, you're going to be the royal family. And the royal family, that's you right there. That's you right there. And that's you right there. You are going to say... That's it. Can you do that for me? Say... So let's just make sure everyone's remembered. When he asked the farmers say... Yay. Very good. All farmers, that's you as well. Farmers, off you go. Yay. Well done. Then when he asked the beekeepers, he gets... Very good. When he asked the fishermen, he gets... Very good. And when he asked the royal family, he gets... Okay. But of course, there were some people in heaven that he could ask as well. So you guys aren't quite in heaven because you're going to be some birds for me. But you and you are going to be some angels. So when he asks the angels are going to say... No. Like that. So you and you, can you say... For me, off you go. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well done. And he's also going to ask the spirits of the moon and the sun. So you guys, you're going to be the moon and the sun. Okay? And that means you are going to go... Okay, off you go. Lovely. That was perfect. Okay. So, we can start this bit of the story now. You all know what you're doing. Nulang went to see the farmers, his friends the farmers, and asked for their help going across the Milky Way to see his wife. But the farmers, they really wanted to get into heaven. That meant they didn't want to make the Queen of Heaven angry. So the farmers said... Yeah. No. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. They nearly said yes because Nulang was their friend, but they didn't want to make the Queen of Heaven angry. So then he went to the beekeepers, thinking that the beekeepers might be able to give him one of those special helmets that he could use to swim through the Milky Way. But the beekeepers, well, they really wanted to go to heaven as well. So they didn't want to make the Queen of Heaven angry. And that's why they said... No! That's it. Like that. Can you say that? Can you say... That's right, because then you get bees up there. And then he went to see the fishermen, thinking that the fishermen would have a boat to take him across the Milky Way. But the fishermen said... No. That's right, because the fishermen, they didn't want to make the Queen of Heaven angry either. They wanted to get to heaven one day. So he went to see the royal family, thinking perhaps the royal family, with all their power and influence, would help him across. But the emperor and his family said... Because the emperor wanted to get to heaven one day, and he didn't want to make the Queen of Heaven angry either. So now, Nulang decided to turn his head up towards the heavens, and he asked some angels if they would help carry him across the Milky Way. And the angels sang. It was a really beautiful no, but it was still a no, because they couldn't make the Queen of Heaven angry. They were already in heaven and they didn't want to be sent out. So then he went and asked the sun and the moon if they would help. And the sun and the moon said... That's right. The sun and the moon didn't want to make the Queen of Heaven angry. They didn't know much about anything, but they knew they shouldn't make the Queen of Heaven angry. And this left Nulang feeling really very sad. He went and sat back in his home and sobbed. He was so miserable, he didn't even close his windows, which meant that, our last line here, which was a row of magpies, were happily able to come into his home and take whatever they like. And magpies, they really like shiny things, that's right. Can you think of something shiny that you might take if you're a magpie flying into his home? Just what's a shiny thing that you might find in a farmer's house? Got a few suggestions coming from over. Sorry, what?
A horseshoe.
A horseshoe, yes. You will need some horses. So can you go shiny and pick up a horseshoe for me? Brilliant. Can you think of something shiny that you might find in a farmer's house?
A bucket.
a bucket. Yeah, you can get some shiny metal buckets. So can you please say shiny and pick up a bucket? Perfect, there we go. And can you think of something that we might find in a farmer's house? Something very shiny. Looks like the idea is sort of on the way to his head. Maybe someone else can push it there for him. Yeah. A gold watch. Yeah, could you pick up a gold watch? Could you please say shiny and pick up a gold watch?
Shiny.
Fantastic, just like that. But a lot of people think that magpies steal. That's not entirely true. You see, magpies don't steal. They just borrow for an extended period of time. And these magpies really wanted to say thank you to Nulang for letting them borrow so much stuff, this watch, this bucket and this horseshoe. And they could see that Nulang was really, really sad. So the magpies asked if there was anything they could do for him. And Nulang told the magpies that all he wanted was to cross the Milky Way to see his wife. Well, the magpies did want to help, but they also didn't want to make the Queen of Heaven angry because they wanted to go to heaven as well. So the magpies said what they would do is for just one day a year, they would club together to make a bridge between Earth and heaven. So that's what you guys are going to do now. If you could go over there to Earth, that's it. If you could go in the middle, and if you could come down here, that's it. I want you guys to hold out your wings, that's it, and link them together. That's it. That's it. Perfect. So that Nulang would be able to step over the magpies across the Milky Way to get to heaven. And once he was there, he was able to sneak into the house and spend just one day with his wife Zinu. At the end of that, though, he had to run back over that bridge of magpies, who would then fly back into the sky. And he had to wait a whole year for another chance to see his wife. And you can tell that this story is true, because if you look up around the Milky Way, you can see a collection of stars in a pattern that shows you that's where Z is. Especially if you're in China, you should ask someone in China to show you the pattern of stars or the constellation of Nulang. And if you look up a little bit higher than Nulang, you can see the pattern of stars, the constellation of Zinu. And between them, you might be lucky enough to see the purple rainbow of the Milky Way that separates Zinu from Nulang. But round about September time, you will be able to see a star that seems to appear in the middle of the Milky Way. That is the star we said was called the Bridge. And the Chinese believe that star appears there when all of the magpies fly up to make that bridge over the Milky Way so that Nulang can go and visit his wife. Well, I think because he's been up to heaven so many times, he gets to share the magic of heaven that lets him live for a long time. And that's why the Chinese celebrate their Valentine's Day around September. Because they remember the story of Nulang going up to see Zinu when the bridge appears. And they actually make a special prayer that Nulang and Zinu will bless their marriage. They do that because they think Nulang and Zinu must have a very good marriage. Because they only see each other once a year, but they still want to be together. That sounds a lot like true love. So that is the story of Nulang and Zinu. And if you think those magpies did a really good job helping Nulang out there, can we give those magpies a really big round of applause?